Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Taupo District Council May meeting. And look at us, Councillor Kingy, going to do a blessing for the day. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Kingy. I'll just check with Lisa, are we all good? Okay. Okay, item 1 of the agenda, apologies. We have departure. Thank you, Councillor Rankin. Any other apologies? Councillor Williamson and Councillor Harvey? Otherwise a full house. Alright, could I have a mover please? Thank you, Councillor Park, seconded by Councillor Kingy. All those in favour please say aye. Those against? Carried. Item 2, any conflicts of interest on any of the items pertaining today? No. Been the case. Item number 3, confirmation of the minutes of the Ordinary Council meeting on the 24th of April 2018. Do I have any points of clarification of those minutes? Councillor Boddy?
If it's matters arising from the minutes, can I refer to page 11 of our agenda, page 8 of the minutes, in regards of 5.15, the elected members' remuneration. It was left alone on the table for the chairman of the Kinloch group. That hasn't been actioned, has it, as yet?
We got a sort of clarification from Remuneration Authority, was it?
So yes, this has been left on the table.
That's my question. It's still on the table a month after.
It's going to be left alone on the table.
Permanently. Okay, fine.
Cool.
Yes, just through the chair. The next item down, 5.16. My colleagues very graciously gave approval for me to attend the Local Government New Zealand Conference in Christchurch. I have not been able to attend that, and so I'll just let Cornelia know.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Park. Any other clarification or matters arising from those minutes? No, could I have a mover, please? Move the council minutes, 24th of April, moved by Councillor Kingy, seconded by Councillor Hickling. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Carried. Right. Item 4.1. Taupo CBD intersection upgrade for the Ruapehu Street and Pardo Happy Street intersection. Fraser Scott, landscape architect, and also Gareth alongside him today. Afternoon, gentlemen.
Apologies, that's not showing up on the screens. With the paper, have you got the printouts of the plans?
Yeah.
Okay. So as part of the CBD intersection upgrade program, where the next intersection off the block is the Parahapi Ruapehu Street intersection. I'm sure you've all driven it and most likely used it as a pedestrian, so it'll come as no surprise that it's one of our worst intersections for pedestrian safety. During the design process, if I can get you to turn to the page that has the yellow dotted line on it, that's the pedestrian desire line. That's the safest point where we can get people to cross the road, and that's the first stage in the design process. Once you overlay that onto the intersection, it becomes pretty apparent that we've got to remove some car parks. In this case, because it's our worst intersection, we've got to remove 6 to get the best outcome for pedestrian safety and intersection safety. And that's really the request. So we can move forward with the design. Are there any questions?
Any questions of Fraser? Councillor Park?
Just through the chair, I'm actually really in support of this, and I mean losing car parks is never a good thing, but I agree it's one of our worst intersections, and where you've got people coming in and out of the Indian store or the bottle or whatever it's called, and then you've got people out of Pack and Save, and you've got people coming from warehouse and all sorts of directions. I try and avoid it as much as I can. So is there any forecasted sort of look at where other car parks might be established that to replace the 6, regardless of where that might be?
Right, not by me, but I guess the only thing to add to that is that the car parks to the north of that intersection are really underutilised, and improving the safety of this will help the utilisation of those, because people will be more likely to use them and cross the road safely. So I guess no new car parks planned, but better utilisation of the ones that we've got.
So I guess on top of that, I'd say the transportation strategy will likely identify car parking as a whole and some of those bigger picture movements.
And just lastly, through the chair, obviously once this is done, you'll be in consultation with St John's so that they'll still have easy
Yes.
accessibility regardless of where the works are being done.
Yes, definitely.
Councillor Body?
Jim, just to raise, like Councillor Park, about the parking, the SIPS report is mentioned here, and if I read the SIPS report in regards to town centre parking, it talks about future parking demands a solution to provide additional spaces, but we're taking spaces away. And then if we go to the town centre parking study stage 2, it talks along similar lines to provide sufficient, affordable, sustainable car parking to meet Taupo's future requirements. We've just lost 2 Wharatara Street if that building there goes ahead. So I am becoming more concerned about reducing car parking spaces. One lot I think we put out by the school, which in some cases is quite a long walk for some of our more senior citizens. So I'm just wondering where the compromise can be.
Yeah. The task is to improve the pedestrian safety in line with CISP, which is making the town more livable and more walkable. And that goal, to my mind, outweighs the parking issue in this location.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that's really my question, and I accept what you're saying. I think it needs to be done if it's safety. I don't have an issue with that. It's just that we seem to be doing corners up and taking 3, 4, 5, and we're going to suddenly find we're going to be short.
Yeah, so through the Chairman, all I'd say is the transportation strategy is probably the time to have a look at that overall picture of where that bigger car parking desire is and how we can then provide it.
Also, there is a long-term plan to relocate the St John's ambulance station, so it could be an opportunity there to reinstate quite a few car parks.
Right, yes.
Once that building goes. So, yeah, I'm not too sure where they're at. I actually talked to them last night, actually, but they were trying to progress. Yeah, trying to progress that a bit quicker than what was anticipated. So, all right, okay. Any other questions of Fraser and Gareth? No. All right. Sounds good. It'd be great to get this corner done up. Awesome. Suggested recommendation there. Could I move it? Thank you, Councillor John. Seconded by Councillor Stewart. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Carried. Right, item number 5. Thanks, gentlemen. 4.2, contract Taupo District Council street light maintenance. Mr. Dennis Lewis. Good afternoon, Dennis.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, Councillors. We just have a minute to close up what Fraser was doing.
Sure.
Thank you, Your Worship, Councillors. I have an agenda item here for the acceptance of the streetlight maintenance contract. It was put out to tender back in April. It's for a 3+1+1 for the maintenance of the streetlights in the district. The successful, the recommended tenderer is Horizon Networks. They're based in Whakatane. They have considerable experience in streetlights and streetlight maintenance. I'll take any questions.
Councillor Park.
Thank you, Dennis. Just in regards to all the streetlights moving to LED, Will the level of maintenance of LED streetlights be the same as what they are now, which is what the tender will be based on?
The two answers to that question. The current contract document provides for the maintenance of LED lighting, and the LED lighting maintenance will be far less than the standard maintenance for the current sodium lamps.
Okay, any other questions of Dennis? Just one from me. Have you used these particular contractors before, have we?
No, we haven't used this particular contractor before in this district, no.
Okay, but you're confident that they can perform the task?
Yes.
Cool, thank you. Councillor Kingi.
Thank you, Worship. Mr. Lewis, just in terms of this new contract, this has been a little pet project of mine back in Turangi around some of the streetlights not working and sort of identifying that to our team. I'm just interested in terms of the what that contract might look like from a from the contractor point of view of identifying when there's outages and reacting. You know, will it just be a rollover of the previous thing, or can we expect an increase? Because I was always concerned about the delayed reaction in Turangi, and I was constantly raising this, you know, through service requests and other things. So, yeah, just interested in the response.
Certainly. Through the Chair, there are two aspects to lights that go out on our network. One is the typically individual lamps, lanterns, or perhaps two lanterns where the lantern itself is faulty. That is what the streetlight maintenance contractor will respond to. With the change to LED lighting, that occurrence should be significantly reduced. The LED lighting is far more robust and far has a far longer life, and so would expect that to be significantly reduced. The second aspect is where the network provider, typically more than 2 or 3 lights, where a section of the network is out. Now that's something that the streetlight maintenance contract has got no control over, nor do we. We rely entirely on then getting hold of the network provider to fix any faults that are on the network. So in this instance, even if we have LED lighting, where those network outages occur, we have no ability to speed that up.
Yeah, thanks for that, Mr. Lewis. I think and I'm glad you make the point about the network provider, because I think that is part of the issue we've got back home. So I'd be really keen to see what our process looks like going forward in addressing this, because we have to wait some longer times, I think, than most other communities in terms of the response from our network provider, and obviously if it's their part of the network that's letting us down in terms of why our lights aren't going, then I'd like to see how we investigate that conversation, because I think that probably needs to be brought to the front. I mean, just the other night I saw a whole street out, and I'm just like, gosh, but that reflects on us as a council, because people just immediately think it's Taupo District Council's responsibility. They don't target it to the network provider. So perhaps we can catch up offline. Thank you.
Thank you. just following on from Councillor Kingi, is there a standard response time once an outage is reported? Forget about the actual supply. I'm just talking about one single street.
There is, and my apologies, I don't have that off the top of my head, but I can certainly provide that response times. But all of our contracts have response times for responding to various activities. In this instance, it would be to an outage.
I think it's just my Councillor Kingi there, just so he knows. Yep. Cool. Any other questions of Dennis? Righty-ho. All right, there's a suggested recommendation there. The street light maintenance. Moved by Councillor Kingi, seconded by Councillor Hickling. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Carried. Okay, tender for contract 4.4 for road maintenance and resealing 2018 to 2.
4.3.
Oh, sorry. Too quick, eh? Where's my computer? That's not it. Oh, yeah, cool. Back page. Lovely. Sorry. 4.3. Taupo and Turangi water network renewals. Dennis.
Your Worship, Councillors, this contract was awarded almost 12 months ago, back in June 2017. It was for renewal of water mains in both Turangi and Taupo. The contract has all but completed. During the course of that contract, we have had some variations that have been outside of control of the contractor and ourselves, and that's explained in page 35, the top of page 35, where based on the information we had at the time of developing the tender, we'd identified 40 existing manifold meters that need to be replaced. As the work has progressed, we've ended up with almost 200 of those meters that need replacing, and they've only become evident as each one has been excavated. That and there's 3 other areas. There was night work to minimise disruption. There were some temporary connections that were made to consumers so they weren't without water, and there was additional water shutdowns. Now that's resulted in an additional cost to the contract of $100,000. So this item is to seek approval to increase the value of the contract by $100,000.
Okay. Councillor Body.
Thanks, Mr. Lewis. So effectively, if what I read here is coming out of the 18-19 budget, it's
that
not unbudgeted money, it's actually in there at the moment. Okay, thank you.
That is correct.
Councillor Park.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, and I had a similar question to that because I thought if it's all but complete, would that be this financial year? But obviously it's not. Did this tender have a contingency amount?
Yes.
Okay, I don't have a problem with it. I understand that materials at the moment are quite expensive, along with labour.
Okay. Any other questions of Dennis? Councillor Heckling.
What term is the contract?
It has no specified term. It's for construction of defined works. Yep. It has gone over the expected time frame, but it's not a term contract.
Councillor Jollins.
Just to follow up on Councillor Hickling, so this will be the last part of this program and contract?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions of Dennis? That being the case, there's a suggested recommendation there that we increase by 100,000. Moved by Councillor Park, seconded by Councillor Stewart. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Carried. 4.4, tender for contract the road maintenance and resealing. 2018 to 224, correct?
That is correct, Your Worship. Through the Chair, if you recall, back in February we ran a workshop with councillors when we were initiating the retender of the road maintenance contract and outlining the sorts of things that we were looking at to include within that tender. So that contract has been out to tender. It's been through an evaluation process, and the result of that evaluation process, the recommendation for Inframex Construction to be awarded the tender. The tender is, or the contract is for 5 years, 9 months plus one right of renewal of 3 years. Inframex have been working within the council area. They've done a number of our seal extensions of recent months, rehabilitation works. They're currently doing the Pohipi widening at the moment. They did the Broadlands Road rehab earlier in the year. They are experienced. Their council had them working on the subdivision up at Botanical Heights a couple of years ago, so they are familiar. They have got a couple of personnel within their team that are based here in Taupo. I'll take any questions.
Okay, it's a big one.
It is a big contract.
Yeah. So you're fully confident that, you know, obviously Inframex are up against, you know, some big companies in New Zealand. You're fully confident.
It has been through an exhaustive tender process.
Yes.
There's a team of 4 people evaluated the tenders. They have also spoken to the referees that were provided on those tenders to get some feedback on how they've performed in similar situations. So it's been an exhaustive tender process.
Very good.
And also, just to add, through that tender process, we've also had Morrison Lowe undertake a probity audit process along with that to make sure that we've done everything correctly.
Right. Questions?
Just ask the question, Mr. Lewis. There's an $8 million difference between our engineers' estimates and what tender we may accept. I understand you've given an assurance that it will meet the requirements, but in 4.5 years, are we going to be asked to contribute more because of that $8 million difference?
The engineer's estimate is based on a best guess of what the industry might be charging for essentially a 6-year contract. That is a challenge at the best of times to get it right. It is a measure and value contract which includes provision for emergency works. I cannot tell you over the next 6 years what level of emergency works we might be faced with. We can again have our best estimate based on what we've done previously, but certainly if we were to get significant emergency works, we might well have to come back to you.
Councillor Hickling?
As I read this, Dennis, it's really almost a 9-year contract because it's right to renewal 3 years and we never turn those down.
That's correct.
So, yeah, 8 years, 9 months basically, I suppose.
Yes, we extended the current contract by 3 months to allow for this tender process to proceed, otherwise it would have been a full 6 years.
Yeah. And that seems to be the norm to extend these contracts, particularly on the roading system, for probably a 10-year period.
Certainly nationwide, the move is to a far longer contract to provide the contractors with that length of time to really get established and also develop a good relationship in the district. So any of these long-term service contracts really rely on developing a good relationship with the principal.
Was there any indication from Informax that they'd set up a depot here, Dennis?
Yes, they will be setting up a depot here.
Okay.
They've already acquired, I think subject to confirmation, but they have acquired a depot site, yes, and that's set out quite clearly in their tender submission.
Great. All right. Okay, any other questions of Dennis?
Just a very quick one from me, Mr. Lewis. I noted in the paper that you talk about Informax offering innovation and value-added services to the contract. Can you just enlighten us a little bit on what
they haven't been specific with their innovation and value-add. One of the things that they perhaps do differently to others is work on an area basis in terms of their maintenance for both the pavement and things like edge marker post mowing and that sort of thing. That's a little bit different to what most contractors do. But certainly we will be driving and seeking innovation through this contract.
Okay, but to clarify, we're not clear on what that is at this point. Okay.
No.
And just last question from me, just can you refresh my mind, who are the incumbents of these
Higgins
contracts?
Higgins are the incumbent contractor.
For both contracts?
No. For both the
maintenance and the resealing. I thought they were split contracts.
The road maintenance and reseals are a combined contract currently, okay. and Higgins are the incumbent for that contract. One thing I would add is that this contract now also includes the signs, which has been a separate contract, and that is also held by Higgins.
Okay. Thank you, Dennis. Any other questions of Dennis? There it is. Tender to be received from Informax. Be awarded to Informax 5-year and 9-month period. The sum of $26,700,092.34. Got that figure right, have we done? Good man. All right, do I have a mover, please? Oh, no one's keen. Moved by Councillor Body. Yes. Seconded by Councillor Stewart. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thanks, Dennis. 4.5. Adoption of fees and charges 2018-19. Mr. Hadley Peddle. Afternoon, Hadley.
Good afternoon, everyone. So in front of you, you've got the fees and charges. There's a schedule attached to those, and the changes are highlighted in yellow following the deliberations that took place on the 14th and 15th of May. Specifically, there's one around the pet therapy dogs being free, and that will be worked through by council officers, and then obviously the fees for the district pools also highlighted in yellow. There's a couple of others in there. Tina, I don't know if you want to just speak to both of those. One around the memberships for the fitness and pool, and also the barbecue. They're just identified in yellow as those changes.
So the barbecue one was the fact that specific barbecue prices were there and prices. The other two relate to the adult fitness membership. So there was a previous era where it was cheaper for a 3-month pre-pay membership. So this is just making sure that we corrected that error and the price has gone for $65 to $73 on page 58 and $40 to $48 on page 60.
Very good. Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Body?
Stella, my apologies to you. I rang to talk to you on Friday and they said you'd be back in the office yesterday and it slipped my mind. There's something just nagging in the back of my head and I can't find it in my documents to do with the dog registrations. Remember we had that meeting and then we had an extraordinary meeting, I think 6th of April or something. We were only going to have one dog registration fee at one stage? Or am I dreaming again?
Oh, so that might be in relation to the rural dog other that was included. And at one point throughout the, I think it was the workshops, there was an era where we had that included and it should have been removed, and we did remove it following you picking it up. Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Body. Any other questions of Hadley? No? Okay, there's a suggested resolution there, or recommendation that we adopt the fees and charges 2018 and 2019. Do I have a move, please? Councillor Rankin, seconded by Councillor Stewart. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Carried. Right, 4.6. Adoption of the draft long-term plan 2018 to 28 for audit. Hadley.
So in front of you is the draft LTP. So this is the full document, but it is based on the many workshops and meetings that we've had up to this point. What is probably slightly different from the last time you saw it is the performance measures. So following the audit of leading into the consultation document, Audit New Zealand suggested that we put the targets out to 10 years. Previously we hadn't had that, so you'll see that there's actually a table there that includes the targets for the life of the LTP, but they're just essentially a reflection of the first 3 years. So it's a change. The second one is the groups of activity statements. Now those generally don't change from LTP to LTP because they simply describe the activity that we undertake. And the third one is around the short stories. So there's small stories under each of the groups of activity statements, just highlighting some of the key projects. So really just seeking your guidance on whether you're happy with those stories, whether there's anything else that you would like to be included, which we can do. And then obviously if it's adopted, it goes through to audit, who will spend the next 2 weeks auditing all the information, which is essentially only the changes that were made through the deliberations. And then they will provide an audit opinion back at the end of June, which is at the time at which you adopt the final LTP, so that you can strike a rate on the 1st of July.
Cool. Thanks, Hadley. Any questions of Hadley? Unusual. I think, yes, Councillor Park.
Oh, yes, thank you. And I have read this thoroughly, but I have reread it and I've dismissed it. There was, one of the submitters was quite keen that we sort of highlight the Lake Taupo Protection Trust project somewhat, and I looked underwater but I can't really see that. Is that something that would be in the story box perhaps?
It could be. Yep, we can provide a story box around that. Yep.
Cool. Councillor Body.
Jim, we also got an email in from a resident of Kinloch in regards to under transport. saying that our risk on the road should have the figure 0. He was questioning what we were actually writing in under the transport budget or transport comments.
Dennis might be able to.
Dennis, sorry. Question is regarding the target.
So the current target is a reduction of one fatal or serious crash on the road each year, and the question was around a 0 target. I think Councillor Parks was down to hear Minister Genta talk about the government's desire for a target of 0. That hasn't been adopted yet. They're still working out how that might happen, what policies and processes need to be put in place to achieve a 0 target, and over what time that 0 target might be achieved. So whilst Council could have a target of 0, whether it's achievable or not at this point is uncertain. The RLTP, which is a guiding document for us, the Regional Land Transport Program, doesn't have that 0 target yet.
Okay, Councillor Park.
Just through the chair, I'm just in support of what Mr. Lewis has said. The central government have said this is the way they are looking at going, but they haven't formally adopted anything yet. It was, and it's around changing their priorities to road safety being #1 and a whole lot of other bits to be put in place before they can actually have that as a performance measure. So I just think it's probably a bit premature to commit to that when we haven't had that leadership from central government yet.
Okay, cool. All right, Councillor Body, is that happy?
Yep.
Answers your question? Yep. All right. Thank you, Dennis. Suggested a recommendation there. The Council adopts the draft long-term plan 2018 to 28 for audit.
Jim, just before you do, I'm sorry to be a pain. We're going to go through this document later, which is the economic development, whatever we call it, adoption of economic strengthening strategy. There's some figures in here that are contrary to the figures in the annual plan for audit. Now, it's reasonably minor, but maybe when we go through this document, if it's important, we can include it in this before it goes to audit. I just can't find it at the moment on the information I've looked through. So,
I mean, we can certainly change that recommendation to be as amended, and then we can amend it based on whatever those discrepancies are before we send it through to audit.
Okay. So a slight change to the recommendation to amended.
Obviously, also we'll add a story around the Lake Taupo Protection Trust. So
it's amended anyway.
as amended anyway.
Yeah. Cool. All right, to have a move by Councillor Park. Thank you very much. Seconded by Councillor Rankin. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Is against? Carried. Okay, 4.7, Council's April Performance Report. Mr. Gareth Green.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'll start off just with the cover page of this, and then the team will work through the specifics. But just a couple of things I want to point out there. The first up is that first paragraph about our wastewater pipe inspection. Quite an important one given the extra finances that you've put into that, unbudgeted for this year. So I think it's worthwhile just pointing out the success that we're having there. Success in terms of finding things wrong, which is a funny way to measure it, but I guess every time that we find something that's wrong, it's one potential less spill into the lake, which is obviously what our desire is. And the only other thing in terms of that report that I'd want to point out is just the bit about our Three Waters team, our waters team, being recognised nationally as leaders in their field. It's something that I'm pretty proud of that team in terms of what they've done. Both in terms of the individuals, you'll see there Jake Henshaw received the Young Operator of the Year award, and the team, and I think that's a reflection of the team as a whole and how they function. So just wanted to point that out and give them a little bit of recognition there. And then lastly, it's not in the report just because of timing, but just wanted to point out that the Mayor, Mr. Ridd, and myself met with Minister Jones last week down in the Beehive, about our economic development aspirations generally as a district, and it's fair to say that we were met with quite a good audience, had a very successful meeting. It's fair to say that Mr. Jones is now fully aware of where Taupo is and what our aspirations are, and sounded very supportive of our plans. So time will tell, and there's a whole lot of other projects in the wings that we have to work towards in the next little while, but at this point, as I say, very supportive of our economic development strategy and where we're heading. So unless there's any questions on that, we'll just hand over to Alan.
Great, thanks, Gareth. Any questions of Gareth at this stage? No? Alan.
Okay. Thank you. Through the chair, we got advised yesterday by Standard & Poor's that our AA long-term credit rating is stable, remains that way. They talked about the SACP, which is a standalone credit rating. They said that's actually stronger than the sovereign, which is the government's, but we are limited by the government's credit rating. If it went up, Taupo's credit rating would go up as well. And their long-term projection was pretty positive as far as Taupo is concerned. So it's good to have an external endorsement of our current position. If we look at the financials to the end of April, they're very similar, in fact, to the previous month, where we have got increased revenue from a lot of the activities. There's pluses and minuses in that. The pluses is naturally the revenue. The minus is the stress that it's putting on a lot of the staff across the organisation, because with the increased activities, and if you look at the personnel costs, we're doing it with the theory that the same amount of people, and there's a limit to how much you can do in that regard. So what we're doing is we're giving the majority of the staff Monday off next week. But we actually haven't, because of the work on the long-term plan, etc., we haven't done a reforecast as far as the year-end position is concerned, but we're reasonably confident that that's where it's going to end up. So I'll jump through and talk about investments and the Treasury Management Policy, or Treasury Management Report, sorry, which is once again very similar to the previous month. Council body did ask a question before the meeting as far as the equity trading, and we reduced our exposure to Tesco's in the UK, which turned an unrealised loss into a realised loss. The reason why we did it was twofold. One was to reduce our exposure, and secondly, in this particular current financial year, we'd done quite a bit of share trading that had created a reasonable amount of realised gains. So by doing that transaction, we ended up year to date with a $17,000 realised gain, but a reduction in our exposure to the Tesco shares. So you can see that our overall results for the general fund and for the TL fund are ahead of plan. We are running at about 5.15% return on the TL, and we have now got our counterparty credit exposure, the policy compliance within budget. So we're looking pretty good heading towards the end of the year. So we'll pass over to Dennis, unless there's any questions.
No? Any questions of Alan? Councillor Body?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
One of the reasons I asked Alan, I'm struggling with our share portfolios. You know what I think about investing in shares, that's another issue. My simple mind says that if we buy a share for $1 and we sell it for 50 cents, we've made a loss. If we buy it for $1 and we sell it for $1.50, we've made a profit. And it's the way. When I saw the Tesco shares, and I believe it was about a $300,000 loss on the 100,000, while I realised gains and unrealised gains, it's very hard to comprehend which way it's going. 1 minute we're getting dividends. We sold some Hellison Classen shares at a loss. I find it very, very confusing, and I'm not sure what the easy answer it is for us councillors, or me in particular, to be able to follow the way it works. And I've got another question in finance and a little bit later when someone else is at the table there. So I don't know whether someone can help me on it. And also I'd like, and Samantha Hannett says you only got to ask, is that when we do sell shares in a foreign currency, you've got to have the New Zealand amount. I think we sold some in Australian dollars recently, so I've got to do the conversion. So just to make it easier, whether it was a spreadsheet, I'm not quite sure. Maybe another councillor can help me out.
Councillor Rankin?
Alan, the comments you made about the staff and the stress and the heavy workload, and I know that we keep our staff numbers down, and I support that, but I'm assuming that that we take care of them through this process. I mean, health and safety is our overall responsibility, and a high level of stress is supposedly unacceptable now. I presume, and I'm not talking about money and overtime, but I'm presuming that we look after them in ways to compensate for that extreme workload situation.
Yep, that's something that we're continually having to manage and deal with, and do so on a daily, weekly basis, and we'll continue to do so.
Councillor Park?
Just through that, Mr. Ed, did you pass on to the staff about how Audit New Zealand were totally impressed with them working out of 6 different locations, difficult working environments, and yet did a fantastic job during the long-term plan process?
That came out of the audit and risk meeting last week.
Right, thanks, Helen. Community services.
Yeah, through the chair, I'll speak to that standing in for Mr. Fox. Just briefly, you'll see there that the revenue side, which really reflects an increase in the building activity, that's up, and I guess that's also reflective of the increased workload that we've just heard that some of the staff are under. So that's flowing through into our revenue figures. I'm happy to answer any questions on that matter.
Thanks, Nigel. Any questions of Nigel regarding community services? All right.
Just through the chair, just more of a comment that that you see that the parking and vehicle infringements just keep going up and up, and I think that's because the people around this table are contributing a lot more now that we're in the CBD.
Yes, one yesterday actually. So did I. Yeah, did you? $21, have they gone up?
$21 too.
Yeah, why is that?
Because you were there for longer than an hour.
All right. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Water. Kevin, nice to see you.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, councillors. Kevin was going to give a presentation on what we've been doing with wastewater overflows, but we've got some minor technical problems. I can see it, but you can't.
One of the telcos might have drilled into it, eh?
Probably give a verbal.
Yeah, if you give a verbal.
I'll just give you a bit of a verbal. Unfortunately, we haven't got the pictures, but I had a few more gross sewer photos to show you that I thought you might appreciate, but unfortunately you're going to miss out on this. So the wastewater overflow reduction project, basically the scope of it incorporates 4 main tasks. One is to inspect or find, inspect and clean all sewer manholes in the Taupo and Acacia Bay area. The second one is to use the SL RAT to, we're alive. So I've got them up there. So the second task is to use the SL RAT to survey all the sewer pipes. The third then is to, based on the sewer RAT or SL RAT score, for the poor scored one is to go through and clean those with the water jetting. And then the last one is to CCTV inspect the pipe for condition. Although they do tend to put those the CCTV through before they jet. So here's just a few more photos. On the left there, you can see right in the top left-hand corner, you can see a manhole lid with somebody's boots there. So we're finding that a lot of the manholes, approximately 50% of them are buried. Not 20% are buried, but 50% need some sort of follow-up work, whether it's cleaning roots and fat out, or whether it's rehaunching it, or whether it needs to be raised to the surface like that one there. So about 20% of all manholes need to be raised, and so far we've covered or checked and and inspected 1,300 manholes just over in the Taupo Acacia Bay area, which is about 35% of all manholes. A couple of photos just there, just showing more examples of fat and root intrusion into the manholes and potential blockages that have been avoided.
Just make an observation here, councillors, where those manholes are to be raised, that's not because when they were first put in that they were put in incorrectly or someone was being lazy. It's often that in intervening periods someone's gone along and done some landscaping and covered over the manholes.
Very good.
Go on to the next one. So again, this is just another photo, but quite a good one, we thought. So the pipe has actually been cut there and rolled to the side, and underneath you can see there's a root travelled right along the bottom of the pipe, and as the root's grown, it's actually crushed the pipe. So you can see the indent in the pipe as it's been turned over. So just another example of one of the things that we're coming across. So we've SL ratted over 800 pipes now, and about a third of those are requiring CCTV or jetting and CCTV. And then from that CCTV, we've got other follow-up work like slump pipes that will need to be relayed or addressed in some way to stop them from blocking. And then the third party, people thrusting their pipes through, and just general condition and some being poor.
Councillor Body? Jim, could just ask the question in regards to what depths do you put your pipes at? It depends where it is, or is there a set depth?
No, it's not a set depth. It'll depend on the they're gravity pipes, so it depends on the topography of the land and how deep they are. Some will be shallow, some will be deep.
The reason I asked, we had a address by two people from the Tauranga Council last week, and they explained us that the tree roots go that way, not that way. I think it was up to 2 metres. Is that something to look at in regards of trying to avoid roots getting into pipes?
Through our through our code of practice, we set out minimum grades for wastewater pipes for gravity mains, and again, as Kevin said, the topography can largely then determine what depth there is to the pipes. For our pressure mains, then typically it's in the order of 900 to a metre deep. Because then you can follow the contour. You're not restricted to having minimum grades on them.
Thought it may be one way of avoiding this in the future. That was all.
So this is the last slide we had for you. So it's just a plan of the Taupo and Acacia Bay area showing the yellow lines where we've SL ratted or surveyed the pipes and checked all the manholes in the area, and the red are the pipes that still have to be done. You might be wondering why there's, and amongst the areas that there's yellow, there's some red pipes. Those are either manholes that haven't been able to be found. Well, that's the main reason. So we haven't been able to put the SL rat through the pipe if we can't find one end of the manhole. So they are on a snag list to go back to and find where they are. And obviously they'll be buried or something like that, so we'll have to look at raising them or digging them up and being able to survey them. But at this stage we're about 35% through the Taupo Acacia Bay area. Hopefully by the end of this financial year we should be nearing 50%. I don't think we'll be quite there, and that'll mean that the unbudgeted or the budgeted, I'm not sure whether it's unbudgeted or budgeted for the next financial year, but that the extra finances that Council agreed to for next year, we should be able to go very close to achieving 100% of all the manholes and pipes in the Taupo Acacia Bay area. Just a couple other things that Kevin asked me to mention, just so you're aware. The Hyde Ave overflow that we had, I'm not sure actually when that date was, but it's probably a couple of months ago now. I think it's the last main overflow we had in Taupo. WRC have notified him saying that there is a formal warning coming through for that. I don't think he's received it as yet, but and the other thing he just asked me to mention was that we are planning on talking with Tūwharetoa and WRC on our future plan for the for the SLRAC work for next financial year and through into what the plan is for the future years as well. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Kevin. Councillor Park.
Will Turangi and Mangakino and any other communities of interest around Kinloch, etc., will they all have the same treatment with the RAP?
That would be my intention. Obviously, it wasn't part of the original plan for being Taupo and Kosher Bay, where we were having a lot of those. But I would certainly like to see that happen. That'll depend a bit on finances.
Certainly with Mangakino, we're currently in the renewal of the wastewater network in Mangakino, so that network has been significantly CCTV'd and inspected to enable us to develop the relining program for that. A couple of years ago we did a reasonable amount of CCTV and cleaning work in Turangi, and probably 12 or 18 months ago we did a fair bit of work in Kinloch as well. So it will be incorporated, but there's already been work done in those areas.
I think we talked about it when we did the budget. I think it's $100,000 per year for those other settlements. Yeah.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes, I would really like to make sure there is something in there for touring, and I'm pretty sure that Kevin acknowledged that there would be, because we have had some breaches down there that do need to look at, especially in Te Kanu as well. So I'm hoping that will be right. I'll be talking to Kevin. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, thanks very much, Kevin. Transport.
Your Worship, I'll take you back to the start, which is water, if you don't mind.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Jumping the gun.
So just looking at the water, capital spends down a bit on where we're forecast to be. That's primarily Waitahanui. And if you look into the body of the Water One, page 300 there, we've identified in Waitanui that there is going to be a delay there. We have got a delay in getting the materials for the reservoir that's coming out of China. And so we can't progress the reservoir component until we get that material. The other thing bring to your attention is the Marpra Road pump station. That's just waiting on some telemetry work before that's finalised, and that's been the case for a couple of months now. Moturopa Reservoir, that's underway with, again, that was a delay from materials, and they're underway with the construction of the reservoir. The Titoki falling main, they're working pretty hard on that at the moment, and it will be beyond the 30th of June time frame, but it won't be long thereafter for the completion of that job. Transport. You'll see there that CapEx is way behind. That's primarily due to the LED lighting upgrade, which was in the order of $2.2 million. Again, there's been delays in getting LED lights and also getting the network approval through to the contractor to work on the network. Those that have been down south towards the airport would have seen the significant progress has been made on the Whariwaka to Rainbow Point footpath, and getting some pretty positive feedback about that path, and we're seeing quite a bit of use already.
Sorry, Dennis, to interrupt. When's the completion on that?
I would estimate that it's probably 2 or 3 weeks away.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I was down there on Sunday, and it's excavated all the way to Whariwaka, and the pool was getting towards Pukinamu there somewhere. Yeah,
cool.
Just down into the dip before Pukinamu, so they're making really good progress.
Far away, good.
What we will be doing with that is linking the southern end of Rainbow Drive into it, so there's a short section there that'll be linked in.
I see that.
Yeah.
Good idea. Excellent.
And no other questions on transport. I will go to wastewater. And you'll see there the operating spend is we're over, and we've been reporting that for a couple of months, and that's relating to work that's been identified through CCTV and survey work that was done outside of the SLRAT stuff earlier in the year. In terms of projects, Whakamaru treatment plant, that contract's been let, but it won't be completed until August. So we're reporting it won't be completed by the end of the financial year. Similarly with the Pukawa wastewater job, that's underway at the moment, but it's unlikely to be completed by 30th of June. The Turangi one, we're not anticipating any more work with that one until we've got the Turangi wastewater consent sorted.
Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Body.
Just on that one, I raised this issue last month in regards of the change in the budget from 560 to 460. Where does that 100,000 now appear in our balance sheet?
I'd have to find that out, Councillor. I don't have an answer for that, I'm sorry.
I think at the time, I think Kevin did try and give an answer from the desk. And it's a little bit like the footpath that went from 170 to 400. Where does that show also on the books? Yep. Thanks, Councillor.
I'll find that. So the Kinloch one, again, we've let the contract for the flood protection works. That work is underway at the moment. There's the work for the effluent holding tank has also been awarded, but that's unlikely to be completed this financial year. The Waitanui wastewater, this is to do with the demolishing of the plant and the site. We've now got a tender that's ready to go out for that work. Just in the last week we've been having discussions with members of the marae, looking at what opportunities there are to repurpose that site for their use. So that may delay that tender just a little bit until we can finalise what needs to be demolished and what can be left. We also need to have some conversation about change of land ownership once we've finished with that site. That'll involve discussion with Middle Tahara, I think it is, number 14. Solid waste. Everything's tracking pretty well there, and as we've been reporting all year, we're ahead of our targets for waste, reducing waste to landfill, primarily because of the economic activity. Stormwater.
Just before we do, sorry again, Dennis. Last month, and I've got page 92, last month the current issues stated that we had employed a site operator for Mangakino. This month it's saying we're still looking to employ.
We are still looking to employ a site operator.
So last month would have been slightly wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The last month was correct, but then
yeah. We're having trouble attracting someone to take up the position. Stormwater, again, slightly over with the operating expend and capital spend. We've got the improved quality improvement device down the bottom of Ruapehu Street there. It's currently being manufactured by Heinz. Delivery is expected this week, and then installation will be programmed around a good weather window. That's probably one of the bigger catchments we've got for implementing an improvement device. It's also very deep. It's going to involve a hole of some 4.5 to 5 metres. It's right beside the road there. It will be high profile. We just need to make sure that we can get it in a good weather window.
Very good, thanks. Thanks, Dennis. Democracy and planning. Who's that? Who's that? Okay. Very good. Thanks, Tina. Investments we've done. Economic development.
Yeah, well, I've nothing to add from previous time either, I'm afraid, Your Worship. I think we need to go back to community facilities now.
Through you, the Chair, just community facilities, there's not a lot of change in terms of financials, but some advancement around the reserves management plan. We've had conversations with Tūrangi Tukua about progressing the reserve management plan ahead of the mana whakahono arohe. They're considering that proposition, which would allow us to move on with our job, but that's still part of that conversation that will be happening next month as part of our engagement with them.
Okay. Any questions of Dylan or John? No. Straightforward. I think that's a wrap, isn't it? Any final comments? Gareth? Okay, suggested recommendation there. We received the CEO's report, and before I call for a mover, obviously Gareth will be departing shortly for his professional development. So we wish you all the very best in that. A great opportunity for you, so well done. All right, you're moving, Councillor Hickling, seconded by Councillor Park. All those in favour, please say aye. It's against, carried. 4.8, request to enable reserve land to be declared road, Waipahihi Recreational Reserve. Mr. Flash, send him.
Good afternoon,
Flash.
Mayor and councillors. Yeah, basically a fairly mechanical piece. When we did the agreement to sell a chunk of the EUL land, as part of the resolution we got authority to vest a piece as road. After some legal advice, it turns out there was a better way of doing it. So we've come back to you for authority to change the wording around so that we were complying with the Public Works Act. I'll take the agenda item as read, but if there's any questions.
Okay, thank you, Flash. Any questions of Flash? So that recommendation there is bang on, is it?
Yeah.
Got all everything right?
Certainly this time.
Surely there must be a typo in there or something.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so that's to enable that to carry on there. Yep. Okay, could I have a mover, please, for the suggested recommendation? Moved by Councillor Kingi, seconded by Councillor Boddy. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, carried. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Flash. 4.10, adoption of district economic. Okay. Where's my computer?
We've got 4.9.
Just for a moment, please, caller. Here it is. Yep. Sorry. In terms of reference to the Tūrangi wastewater, Mr. Tahau.
Kia ora koutou. So there's been previous resolutions moved by council around the wastewater treatment plant working party, where we appointed 3 representatives for council and 3 to come from Haukainga down in Tūrangi. There's been a additional update request for 4 representatives, not 3, which means we need to vary our resolution and also the terms of reference. So I'll take the report as read, but as part of that, the recommendation is that we revoke Part 1A, 1 and 2 of the resolution, that we direct officers to, you direct officers to establish with a 4 hapu iwi reps and 4 council reps, including a retaining councillor Williamson and 3 council representatives, and then the report back and the terms of reference as noted in the recommendations.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah. Through the chair, just a quick question to me. Why the increase in numbers around the table? Just like to understand. I couldn't see that in the paper as to why.
Yeah. So part of the, at the moment we've identified Ngāti Turangi Tukua have a significant role with the site. The inclusion is that part of the receiving body of water includes Ngāti Krauvia, which is our Te Kānu hapu. They have asked to be a part of the working party, which we think is a good thing. So the construct of the working party will be 2 for Turangi Tukua, 1 for Ngāti Krauvia and 1 for the Tūpara Tō Māori Trust Board. Yeah, that co-governance, it shares the responsibility. Equally, this is a new way of us working in terms of the steering group, so it does provide an opportunity for growth for our team working in this space as well.
Do you want some more names today? Or?
If we could, we would just like to take it as Councillor Williamson. We'd like to look at representatives. At the moment it's myself and Mr. Strongman, but equally we might be able to identify some other people suitable to represent your interests.
Okay, cool. Councillor Park.
Yeah, no, I think our environment portfolio holder is probably enough for us, but just under the draft terms of reference, and it's got 1 membership and then it's got 3 endorsed tangata whenua representatives as follows, and that's underlined, but then it lists the 4. Geez, is that just a typo, or is it that the Māori Trust Board is not a tangata whenua representative, or how does that work?
So the way, from a resourcing perspective, we are looking at supporting the hapu in their participation, but the Trust Board has said they will not need any support from council, so there's one issue there, one matter there. Attached to that, there is also the conversation that the Trust Board is a body corporate entity as opposed to hapu mana whenua conversation, so they have some requirements under the RMA. That's the sort of difference between the 3 and the 1, but yeah.
Okay,
Your
everyone
worship,
happy?
just from a governance point of view, I'm just wondering whether it would be wise to have 2 councillors and 2 officers on that, just for the minor of the committee. Do you think that they're looking for governance as well as staff on that?
From what we're seeing at the moment, it is very much an operational working group,
Okay.
and there is an expectation that the report back will come to council, and the way in which you have that discussion with the hapu is something we're yet to determine, because it will be a shared process in terms of the conversation once we get through the work of the cultural impact assessment and the wider conversation of the site. So, but good for Kaido, good thought, but we think we've got it at the right level into the future.
Very good. Okay, thanks, Dylan. Moved by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Park. 1 and 2 there. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Carried. Thanks, Dylan. 4.10, adoption of district economic strengthening strategy. Jess.
Afternoon.
I'll take the paper as read. You workshopped this document before Christmas on the 12th of December. Are there any questions?
Oh, it's a long time ago.
It was a long time ago. It's nearly going to be Christmas time again.
Yeah, true. Any questions of Jess? Councillor Body? Councillor Jollins?
Good afternoon, Jess.
Hello.
It was a very good read, thank you. A couple of questions from me. One is timelines, role that council specifically plays in some of these aspects.
Sure.
Where do we capture that? Because I didn't see in terms of timings, you know, we talk about the projects.
Like an action plan and that.
Like an action plan.
Yep.
I would like to see as the next stage that we look at developing that, and I think it would be of value to do some sort of matrix that shows where council has a role to play and where it's a shared role.
Yes.
I think that's really, really important.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think we should view this very much as a living document, because you talk about the stakeholders you've talked to, but the world is changing at a huge pace. And so I think it's really important that we don't put this in a drawer and go, tick, done. I think we need to continually be revisiting it.
Absolutely.
But for me, that crucial part is timings, and then being very clear in our own minds what role we play as a council within all of that, so that helps bring this together.
So I absolutely take your point, is that this is a living document, because obviously with our 6 catalyst projects that sit in there at the moment, once they get the tick off and we're moving forward with them, other projects will need to come online, so it will need to be kind of a reinvention of the wheel as we move forward. And as you say, the world is changing at a great pace. The first draft of this document was done when National was still in government, so then when Labour came into government, we've had to redraft the document yet again. So this is possibly number 5 or 6 iteration of this particular document, but we have to put it as a mark in time and then move forward from there.
Okay, and just one point for the record, and I just have to feel compelled to say this having read the report. There is a comment in there by Synergine, who wrote the report, that the energy sector and the geothermal sector do not work very well together, and that could not be further from the truth. So it's just a few of those statements like that when you read the report and you know you live and breathe it, that's actually not the case. So I just urge a bit of caution about making some grand statements like that. I just had to make that point.
Thank you, Councillor.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Johns. Councillor Truman.
Yeah, so sorry, I was not at the workshop when this document was workshopped. And you know, those catalyst projects, they'll be excellent for the whole district. Definitely say that, but just from a Mangakino perspective, I was just quite disappointed that I think we got a page, one page in the document, and really, I mean, Waikato River Trails wasn't mentioned, you know, and that's probably our key major thing. When I look at the stakeholders, like no one from Mangakino was talked to. There doesn't really seem like any economic development for Mangakino sort of mentioned, other than Taupo's projects, which will have a flow-on effect. I understand that, but it would have been good, well, I would like to see council specifically look at Mangakino, which is different from Taupo and different from Turangi, just geographically as well as other things. And like even when you look at the maps that, you know, have key strategic things, I mean, on our one page it makes a big note of, you know, our Māori versus non-Māori population, although it doesn't mention that for Taupo, doesn't mention that for, oh, it does mention that for Kinloch. They've got 3% Māori, but then it doesn't go on to say the education or the unemployment there, but for Turangi and Mangakino it does. Yet on the map it's got map because it's not mentioned there at all. The education's not mentioned there at all. Like basically we're off the map. We got one page though, and we got a pretty picture. But I would like to see more focused on Mangakino and what can we do there to help with economic development, because I just don't think that we've been included in this, other than the flow and effects from the great projects happening in Taupo, which I do think will be good for the district. But yeah, I would like to see, like speaking on what Roseanne said, the next steps. I would like to see specific next steps for Mangakino and what that could look like, and actually getting the people that write these reports to talk to people in Mangakino, because we're not even included. If we're just quite frank, we're not even included. So yeah.
I guess just to say, you know, it's a living document, and if Councillor Truman's got some ideas, this is why it's so important to come to these workshops so you can feed this stuff in.
Absolutely.
So I think, Councillor Truman, it's a living document, so we're inviting you probably to reflect your community and what the aspirations are.
Absolutely.
So that'll be cool. Any other questions of Oh, sorry, Councillor Body.
Thanks, Your Worship. It's nice to see we have an AA plus credit rating. Is that correct, Alan? It's nice to see we have an AA plus credit rating.
AA.
No, AA plus?
No.
Oh, okay. On page 24 it says we do. In regards of, you said it's a living document, it refers to the local cost, government cost index of 1%. As we've changed that going forward, should it be now represented at 1.5?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
So this is, again, these are changes that are happening
Okay.
dynamically.
Yep.
So when we reiterate the document, then we move these things forward. Yeah.
Okay. So then on page 47, refer to the last long-term plan. That'll be changed to the new long-term plan. Would that be correct?
because the benchmarking for this was done against the 2015-2025 long-term plan.
Okay.
So it does refer to the fact that there will be a new long-term plan.
Okay.
Moving forward. Yeah. Obviously.
It actually on page 55 it does. There's a side bar there that actually talks about the 2018-28 one. On page 55, so that will that actually
when we're
change?
speaking about Ruapehu Alpine Lifts?
No, I'm talking on page 55. It's got TDC long-term plan 2015-25. Then beside it, it states that the document will provide guidance from the one we've just done.
Yes.
So will that be? Okay.
That will be that. So that. Right. Okay. Here we go.
Okay.
Yeah. Provide guidance. So so this is based. The base structure was based on the 2015 to 2025 long-term plan,
Okay.
and this was to provide guidance for the 2018 to 2028 long-term plan. But obviously the timing was slightly out for that.
Okay. If we turn to page 58, it talks about the 17A review.
Yep.
It talks about the challenges of population decline expected to increase above 37,000 in 2035 and then fall to 35,343. It says there only a marginal increase. Should that be a decrease?
Yes, it should say decrease, not increase. Good spotting, thank you.
If we go to page 79, I raised this when we were doing the long-term plan. Bloody thing keeps going back.
Sorry, what page are you on?
We're now on page 79, which is in line with what I've just said in page 58. It states in page 79 net population growth of around 39,000 by 2048 from the scenario of 37,000 in 2017. I think on our long-term plan, which we've just approved, it actually states 39,000 by 2038, not 48. Which one's correct?
I would have to check that. I don't know that off the top of my head.
Right. 79.
But no, Hadley and I can have that conversation.
Okay. I can believe that one. Just another couple. 87. On page 87, sustainable growth opportunity enabling potential outcomes. Page
Can you show me
87.
which pitch?
87, industry.
Industry, yep.
Yep.
Okay, sorry.
It mentions a number of
Your
I
page
suppose
is
generators. Mighty River Power doesn't exist now, does it?
Mercury.
It's just Mercury. We can have that changed as well.
And finally, just a comment in regards of the actions out at Waireki Tourist Park. You remember that overhead ropeway that you're going to be able to swing through the trees? Does anyone know where that is at the moment? Because it was approved.
I believe that they are still working through some projects.
Okay.
And with regards to that, I think that there's been a few hurdles that he's had to overcome, so it's still in progress.
Okay. Thanks, Jess.
Cool. Does anybody else have anything?
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Jess. No other questions of Jess? All right, this is suggested. You there? Suggested recommendation there. The Council adopts the District Economic Strengthening Strategy. Moved by Councillor Body, seconded by Councillor Truman.
Only if we're making changes to it.
It's a living document. We'll definitely.
Feel free.
And those are quite project specific as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. All those in favour, please say aye. It's against. Carried. Thanks, Jess. 4.11. Adoption of forms for grants and partnerships. Dylan and
Rose is going to take care of
Rose.
the worship.
Good afternoon, Rose.
Put me in the seat. I take that the forms have been read.
Yep.
That's the recommendation.
So this is the recommendation that Council adopts the following independent grant distributor application form, partnership agreement application form, and partnership agreement accountability form.
Accountability. Cool. All right. Any questions of Rose and Dylan? Oh, sorry. Have you finished, Rose?
Oh, just the comment that last time we met and discussed this, we did form a working party, and that included Councillors Park, Jollins, Stewart and Harvey. They've worked through this, and it's now to enable us to start the process, we need to have these forms adopted or not.
Great. Thank you very much, Dylan. Any questions,
Yeah,
Councillor Jollins?
just through the chair, could you just clarify for the benefit of all of us in the room what the next steps are in terms of timings?
So from this process, once the forms are adopted, Council will advertise for the partnerships. That will begin on the 8th of June. That is following a conversation that you'll be having with your current distributors, which has been put into your diaries today. The 8th of June will start a month-long process where people can apply, or groups can apply, for either partnerships or to be independent distributors on your behalf. Everyone who is currently distributing your social service through to Sports Advisory has to apply again, except for Mangakino Pauakani representative group and the TTCB. Those are internal processes for us. So you are looking for distributors for environment, social services, sports and creative arts in your district.
And just to clarify, that will be up and running in place of July?
We are looking at notifying at the end of July once we've gone through a meeting with yourselves, because those applications need to be considered by you as opposed to officers. So there will be a meeting.
Thank you.
Great. All right. Any other questions of Rose or Dylan? Councillor Trevor?
Yeah, I was just wondering, under number 7, hang on, what page is this? 486. I was just wondering, you asked for the bank account name. Did you need to put the bank account number on the form?
So part of your requirements the applicant has to also provide a pre-printed deposit slip.
Yep.
This is just to make sure that it matches up with the entity.
That's cool. And I was just wanting to know, so this is page 492. So the question number 4. So who was involved in your community group organisation, and were there any new partners you've collaborated with? What are we sort of trying to find out there? Does that mean financially have an input into the organisation, or?
Can I just ask which application form you're talking
sorry,
about?
page 492. Sorry, I've bookmarked it. Page 492, question 4. Yeah, because I got the same question for the other one. So, just what are we trying to find out? I'm just trying to think, as a person trying to fill this in, like if I have contact with 500 groups, I don't know, like what information are we trying to find?
So the partnership agreements are replacing your service level agreement, so it's not an individual. In this instance, you would be identifying who you work with in your regular operation and how that relates to council and what you're proposing council support you to do. So the partnership agreement as a whole is from the organisation that
Yeah.
you represent's perspective and how it relates to council.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, why do we want to know who their partners are? Is it financially? Like, what are we trying to find out with that question?
I think it's more about the collaborative working, the collaborative approach, that they're working collaboratively, because we hope to work in the same way.
I see, yeah. Like, that's right. I just wondered whether you want to make this questions, say on page 499, you've got the same sort of question. I just didn't know, who are you in partnership with or collaborating with?
Yeah.
Just didn't know whether you wanted to elaborate, because I was just thinking if I was a community group and I deal with lots and lots of groups, do you want all those names, or is it just on a governance level? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Depending what activity you're looking for council's support on, because it is around how and what your biggest bang for your buck is.
Yeah.
How much reach does the project and the partnership that the partnership, not project. How wide a reach does that have, and how do you touch the biggest part of your community?
Yeah.
Councillor Kingy.
Thank you, Worship. Just in terms of the partnership agreement, Dylan, so I had very little knowledge of this sort of previously, but with the old agreements, was that more of a handle by staff in terms of approval for those partnerships in comparison to now, or was it always come to council?
It's always been approved by council. The criteria have changed, and the names obviously, but the criteria have changed in that it's now a threshold of a minimum of $5,000 per annum, and equally we're looking at connecting it to your vision and how best that the community groups can contribute to your goals as council.
And there's a process now.
Yep.
Very good. Okay, no other questions? Rose and Dylan? Okay, suggested recommendation there, we adopt the three various forms. Thanks to Councillor Jollins, seconded by Councillor Stewart. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Okay, thank you, Rose and Dylan. Representation review. Initial proposal for consultation. Tina.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is really just bringing together the formal agenda item. We've had a number of workshops in terms of representation review and the requirements, and the initial proposal will go out for consultation for around 6 weeks. We'll come back for hearings and deliberations, and then you can determine whether you want to change it or continue with the initial proposal that was sent out to you. So the recommendation there sets out your 11 councillors, the change to the 5 wards, and a community board, which is different to the current one in terms of its location and makeup. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks Tina. Any questions of Tina?
Mrs. Jakes, these are all going out, are they? All the different wards that you've drawn up for us.
Yes, so the 5 wards that are listed there and the maps, they will form part of the initial proposal and part of the consultation document, which Lisa is putting together as part of the proposal.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Any other questions of Tina? Councillor Jollins?
Yeah, just one through the chair, and I'm sorry, I'm formulating this as I speak. When we do the consultation process, we'll have quite a bit of discussion on why we've got to this point and why we need to potentially look at this.
Yes.
Does this mean that the status quo is off the table for discussion?
One of the things that you might get back from your community in terms of submissions is that they think the status quo actually meets the requirements in terms of communities of interest, those sorts of things. It still doesn't comply with the population ratio, but if you get a strong enough sense from the community that that's where they want to head, you can make a decision once you've heard that in terms of your final proposal. Whether you wanted to go back to status quo or make some minor adjustments.
No, it's just that, you know, moving forward, I'd like to know that, you know, this community feels they have the chance to say what's best for their community, and we're not necessarily always have to work with ratios and quotas that are being dictated by the government based on a blanket approach to all in New Zealand. So I just want to make sure that when we have that conversation, people understand that this...
Yeah, and the counter of that, of course, is that if it's a non-complying one, that that decision might be taken out of the community's hands.
Sure,
too.
and that's why it's important for the community to have their say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Councillor Kingi.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, just supporting my fellow councillor over there around representation. Obviously, this has the potential to be a real storm around this one, I guess, as our communities voice their opinion, as we sort of start to go down the line of identifying something and go out to consult on. I guess looking at it from a southern perspective, you know, there's going to be an easy perception here that Te Regi loses some of its representation, albeit its configuration in a very different way. So we are in a bit of a situation of we're damned if we do and we're damned if we don't. But I guess it's really important that our community do voice that you know, their opinion in this regard, to help us in finding that solution, whilst we try to conform to a central government, I guess, policy. Thanks.
Councillor Park.
Yeah, just following on from my fellow two colleagues, I think it's a real shame that this is based on population rather than ratepayers, and to split a Mori and Kuratau sort of away from that Turangi sort of ward just doesn't seem right. But I do agree that we need to go out and with a compliant option, rather than having it dictated to us. But yeah, and how we communicate that and let people know that this is probably not the best thing for us either, but this is something that we could live with, rather than having it dictated to, that it being based on population and not ratepayers.
Cool, thanks, Councillor Park. Councillor Stewart.
And just with going out for consultation, if there's a community group out there that wants someone to come and talk to them from staff about this, not just do it, but actually have a conversation, that would be available, wouldn't it?
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Stewart. Yeah, I would certainly, as Mayor, urge all these communities listed here to have a good look at this proposal.
Yeah.
It's most important. And I echo the sentiments of the councillors around here. It's just, unfortunately, we do this, and we would do it with the best intentions, but no doubt the communities will let us know if we've got it wrong. So thanks, Tina, I know it was a lot of work for you and your team for putting it together. All right, suggested recommendation there. Let me go out with these proposals. Do I have a mover, please? Yes, Councillor Park.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Maybe it's just the late of the day, or I'm not sure. But so the recommendations that are listed, there's the A, at large, B, change in wards. Is it that we pick one of those, or is it that we go out with the two options? So just a little. I'm confused.
So the recommendation is for one option. A is 11 councillors elected under a ward system plus the mayor elected at large. And then B is the 5 wards are going to be.
I beg your pardon, I read it incorrectly. I should have paused at the comma.
Yeah. Okay, were you moving that, Councillor Park? Okay, seconded by Councillor Jollins. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Not a lot of enthusiasm. No. We'll soon. Lisa, just are you okay? You pick up that communication side of that. No doubt you've got everything right in the past, and I'm sure you'll get it right again. So,
3 salaries now.
Right, okay, sorry. 4.13, was that correct?
That's correct.
Council engagements and for June 2018.
So just to note,
Thanks, Tina.
for Wednesday the 6th, there's been a couple of additional ones which you've probably just had a calendar invite on. So one's an extraordinary meeting at 1:30, and then another meeting in terms of the current distributing agencies that Dylan referred to at 2:30. And I think that's all. In terms of additional meetings, there's Zone 2. In terms of any member like to attend that on Friday the 1st of June at Mount Maunganui.
It's this Friday, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not sure what time sure what time the meeting starts. I can find out if you're interested.
Would you like to go there? You up at 6? No, sorry. Yeah. Actually, shall we put you in there, Barry, just in case you...
Yep.
Possible? Yeah. Anyone else? Okay, so the inclusion of Councillor Hickling in there.
Yep.
1 and 2. Okay. A mover, please. Moved by Councillor John, seconded by Councillor Truman. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, carried. Right, 4.14, members' reports. Councillor Park.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Thank you to my colleagues for allowing me to attend this. The first ever elected members forum with Sports New Zealand. It was fascinating to get together with other, mostly councillors who have the same sort of portfolio area, and speak with Sports New Zealand, who are deciding to now, instead of being partner-centric, to be participant orientated. So that was quite exciting to hear. I'm not sure about the number of years, whether it was 6 or 7, but there has been 11% decline in sports participation throughout the country, in competitive sports, and that traditional sports of rugby and netball are not necessarily what people are into, and there is a huge amount of worry for our young kids and their physical literacy, and also the physical literacy of teachers in schools. So they've got some cool pilot programs running with Sports New Zealand to work with teachers on how to better physical literacy with our children rather than send them out to play midnight or whatever. They also think that the changing faces of sports is due to the ethnic diversity of our country, and I think we can see that Turangi is a fine example of that with the different sports that are popular down there with the jiu-jitsu and lacrosse. Yep. So they are given 130 million in central government funding a year. 70 million of that gets sent to high performance sports, and 30% of that 70 million is actually in airfares, given our geographical location. So we do punch well above our weight, especially when you look at the likes of Eliza over the weekend. So they're wanting to spend some time looking at parental education, listening to the participants and what they want to do, rather than providing sporting services and people expected to fit those moulds, which I thought was quite encouraging. And they want to get away from the likes of the AIMS games, where it is about competition rather than participation, which I thought was quite encouraging as well. So they also talked about inside the head of central government, and instead of them being more focused on economic benefits and measures, they're now looking more at well-being, and they've got so there's the 4 pillars of well-being that are coming back in for us. But Treasury have a different framework of called a living standards framework, so we've got to work out how that all works in together. It is felt that we need to look after our children, particularly in the sporting arena, and how they are brought up, because we do a lot for our seniors, but we don't necessarily do a lot for our kids. So it all from a social level works in quite a lot. So there is some really cool stuff happening. I've got some really cool presentations, but I've spoken to Kevin Strongman and also to Nathan. Nathan attended the officer equivalent of this forum, and going into developing the sport and rec portfolio, our strategy would be quite good to just maybe have a workshop with our regional advisor from Sports New Zealand. Sports New Zealand are very keen to have a more direct relationship with local government. The only funding we get from them at present is the Rural Travel Fund, which is not a lot. I think it's about $15,000 a year, which is not a lot with our sort of makeup. And a lot of other councils are in the same position as us, where we need to look at all your spaces and places and codes and work out what is best for the entire district and where you put is best bang for buck, because with non-profits and volunteer hours going down because mum and dad's all at work these days and people are busy, that hub concept is probably something that a lot of people will move towards as well. And also there was some really good conversations about what non-profit sports clubs can and can't do on council land in regards to the Reserves Act. So that guidance is coming through as well shortly. So thank you very much, got a lot out of it, and Sports New Zealand are basically reimbursing the entire cost of the FSO. It was basically a nil cost to attend. Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Anna. Right, any other reports? If there's any written reports, if they just funnel them up this way, be cool. Alright, suggested recommendation that we receive the reports. Moved by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Jollins. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Carried. That is it. Thank you very much. We'll just, Councillor Kingy, do you mind just say final part before we go into the confidential part? Thanks. Thank you, Councillor.